The night before my mother died was the night before Mother's Day. It was clear she was close to the end, impossible to know how much longer she had. Should I stay at my parents' house, leaving my own young daughters alone on Mother's Day morning? Knowing that my father would be with my mother and that my 3-year-old had planned a surprise breakfast for me, I decided to go. But in the face of such finality, when do you decide to walk away? She was not alert, so there was nothing more I would hear from her, nothing more I could say, though that did not stop me from talking. I felt that I couldn't leave without some sort of deathbed revelation. I took a long look at her face. My eyes lingered on her nose. Had I never noticed what a perfect nose she had? Probably not, because the way I was staring at her would be creepy under any ordinary circumstances. Regardless, I was really seeing it for the first time and might never see it again. Then my eyes traveled to her roots, which were gray, and my reverie was interrupted. Holy shit, she's gonna kill me. Not the poetic deathbed scene I imagined, but in my defense, I had her wake to worry about. The wake she never wanted, not that any of us really want a wake. Long before my mom was ill or even old, she made clear that she did not want a wake. Whenever we went to one, and being part of a large Irish Catholic family, we went to a few, she'd look at me and say, "You can't do this to me. I don't want anyone standing over me, and no bagpipes." She forbade either a wake or that I visit her grave. She said she wouldn't be in either place. And it's important to understand something else about my mother. She was beautiful. She always looked amazing and dignified. She told me that her mother never told her she was beautiful. She felt vanity was a sin. In raising me, my mom overcorrected. She always told me I was beautiful, even during the height of my awkward phase when it was patently false. Sometimes it even felt like a threat. If I doubted myself, she'd say, "Didn't I always tell you you were pretty?" As if to wash her hands of whatever crisis of confidence had befallen me. I pointed out that arbitrarily throwing out words like stunning on a regular Tuesday undermined her credibility. But she was also honest. One summer when I was home from college, she took me aside, sat me down, and in a grave tone said, "It's time for me to tell you something. You really need to start tweezing your eyebrows." Another time, I couldn't decide if a dress was too tight, so I stopped by her apartment on the way to my event. We met in her lobby as my cab waited. She evaluated my dress, approved, and sent me on my way, leaving the cab driver and the doorman mystified by what had transpired. Maybe that's too involved, but one person's unhealthy codependency is another person's free stylist. Of course, she cared about more than my appearance. She'd often say, "What I'm most proud of is that you're as beautiful on the inside." She wanted me to be a good substantive person, but she felt that the outward expression of who you were reflected your inner pride and dignity. Some of the first evidence that something was wrong with my mother manifested itself in her appearance. Her hair, always chic, blonde, and in place, was not combed quite right. Her smile was not radiant. I went shopping with her and she bought something unflattering despite my protests. These were a few of the many small pieces that, taken together, completed a horrifying puzzle. She had a neurological condition that caused dementia. She was terrified. She was furious. Nothing about it was passive or serene, but she looked the same. So the more we lost of her, the more we helped her maintain her appearance, which she seemed to appreciate. We arranged appointments with her colorist and stylist, who tended to her hair with a grace that restored my faith in humanity. My dad, God bless him, would accessorize her in the manner she had long been accustomed, belting her into clothes well past the time she was able to manage belts. We were upset when she needed elastic waist pants. Not that they were a bad look, which they were, if we're being honest, but because they represented one more thing that she had lost. When she could still communicate, she would frequently mention her death. Watching with horror as she lost so much of herself, I was more fearful of what living would mean. She expressed that a wake would be okay for the sake of my father, for her family. She even said something positive about bagpipes. This was all very abstract to me, and then suddenly she declined. She was in and out of the hospital. She stopped communicating. She stopped eating. Her descent was rapid, shocking, and rendered her appearance irrelevant. As I sat with her that last night, I no longer feared her death. She had suffered more than anyone should have to. But I did fear her wake. She died with my father at her side on Mother's Day morning. I got the news shortly before my daughter served me a juice box in bed. Soon after, we began preparations for her service. Some decisions were easy. Her goddaughters would do readings. We had to have On Eagle's Wings. At a Catholic funeral, the people expect On Eagle's Wings. But the open casket frightened me. I desperately contacted her hairdressers for advice, acutely aware of how shallow I sounded. "Hello, my mother just died. Do you happen to have her color formula?" As it turned out, the funeral home could only use the home hair color kit from the drugstore, so I scurried through CVS trying to match my mom's beautiful blonde. And all of this led me to joy, not the emotion, but the makeup artist at the funeral home where my mother's viewing was held. Along with the help of an aunt, I went to see how my mom looked before the wake. Before me was a stranger. And it was a stranger, oddly enough, ready for a big night out on the town. Her hair was brassy and sprayed into a bit of a helmet shape. Her makeup was decidedly evening with a bold lip. I must have looked horrified. Joy quickly tried to explain. "Honey, I tried to give her some volume, but there wasn't much to work with." Oh, Joy, sweet, sweet Joy. My mother had many goals in her life, but volume had not been among them since the late 60s. Joy was trying to give my mom dignity, but her interpretation was a bit too glam. And in the few hours she had with her, how could she know how to recreate my mom? How could Joy know all that my mom's appearance meant to me, to her, to those who knew and loved her? How could Joy know the warmth behind her smile and the inner spirit that animated her outer beauty? We tried to adjust. I even gave Joy my own neutral lipstick to use on my mom, which she lovingly tucked underneath her pillow. As my mom had warned, she was not there, but she's always with me now, especially if I'm choosing an outfit.